Welcome, everyone, to a very exciting topic. We all hear about building high performing teams, but once they're built, how do you lead a high performing team? And of course, we've got today with us a super expert on the topic of high performance, Valerie Hayse. So let's get to it.
Empowering women on a global scale. Welcome to Powerful Women Today with Carolina Billings. Powerful Women Today is on a mission of inclusion, rewriting his story to include her story, and empowering, raising, and amplifying women's voices with professional speaking, publishing, original podcasting, and web TV. And now here's your host, the founder of Powerful Women Today, Carolina Billings.
Welcome, Valerie.
Thanks so much for having me, Caroline. It's such a pleasure to be here with you and your audience.
Thank you. Thank you. We're going to speak about a very important topic because most leaders are high performing individuals that, there's another episode coming up about that in how, any asset gone overboard becomes liability. But so you're a high performing individual, which of course you want to build a high performing team.
Yes.
And that's the topic today. How do you build them? How do you lead them? How do you keep them high performing? So tell our friends what inspired you about the topic.
Well, my first career, haven't we all had multiple careers by now? My first career right out of college was in corporate America as a human resources professional. And I did everything in human resources. I was a general rep, that you call with questions. I did hiring. I've hired everything literally from a janitor to an executive vice president and everything in between. Investigated sexual harassment cases, dealt with employment issues, a variety, reorganized departments. And what I noticed was that the departments that operated the smoothest and were able to get the most done and really sort of have fun along the way were the ones that had taken the time to develop a high performing team. So then when I started my own business after leaving corporate America, I traded to create a high performing team for myself, right? And now when I work with clients, I am creating high performing teams for them, which includes, writing the job description, figuring out the organizational structure, what structure is best to create a high performing team, and then hiring the people and then providing them with leadership and mentorship and coaching. And I think that sometimes as entrepreneurs, we sort of think, well, I can carry the world on my shoulders. I just need someone who can do this little thing. I don't need them to be, an A player. I just need them to do this little thing. And that might work for a very limited period of time. But as your business grows and scales, that's not the best way to approach it. So even in those very early days of owning a small business and fulfilling your dreams, you need to be thinking of creating a high performing team.
Agreed. And when you hire, just like you said at the beginning, it's like, oh, I just want someone to do simple, the simplest thing. Right. Usually, simplest often comes with a higher level or a higher need for leadership and management.
Yes, that's very true.
Right? And you pay for it in a different way.
Yes. As a matter of fact, for one of my clients, I am providing mentorship and leadership to baby boomers, millennials, and the Zoomers. And they all have completely different leadership needs and communication needs. What motivates a boomer does not motivate a Zoomer. And that's why you have to be aware that sort of as your skill level progresses, you're going to assume that an entry-level person knows all of the things you already know, and you're going to temporarily forget that you didn't know those things when you first started, right? They haven't, because when we, not only do they not know the skills, but they don't know the thought processes and the problem solving. Schools don't teach problem solving anymore. They just don't. And, you can instantly type something in and get an answer back right away. So problem solving is a skill set that really the millennials can do it. But if you get down towards the bottom of the millennials, right where it goes into the Zoomers, that's when it really shifts. And it's sometimes hard for you, if you're bringing in one of those Zoomers as sort of an entry-level person, it's hard because you think they have all these problem solving skills because, we
What they
didn't.
do in a different way.
Yes, they're great at technology.
Yeah, because they're digital natives, so they are able to maybe access or navigate more fluidly through technology, but nothing replaces experience.
Right. Yes. Yes. And the Zoomers I'm working with are absolutely delightful.
Mm-hmm.
The millennials and the boomers. But you just have to be aware that there's different needs for people at different stages of their development. And if you're leading a high performing team, you have to be the leader that helps shape and mentor their career. You have to be the one role modeling the behaviors and giving them a little guidance, not in a blaming way, because that never works for anybody, but, in an encouraging, here's a different way to think about it. Here's a different way of looking at this situation.
Yeah. And here's the way we do it, because that also, each company has their own particular way of doing things.
Yes.
Right, wrong, or indifferent. It could be that it's time for change, right? But before change is implemented, it is really important to understand why we're doing things the way we're doing things,
Yes.
right? But one of the things as a person building that high performance team, and I saw a lot of these in corporate, right? Is, buzzwords like change agent and innovator and disruptor, and how organizations highly value that until they arrive. And then all of a sudden you get all of these disruptors and innovators and change agents, just bubbling right at the with energy. And it's how to harness that and understand that they're not, if they're not coming in to be a yes person.
Right.
Right?
Yes.
So it's almost like be careful what you wish for when you're putting together those high performing teams, because the high performing individual performs differently.
Yes.
Than your regular,
it's a different challenge.
Yeah.
It requires a higher level skill set to coach a high performing individual, because they're going to test you and push you more than someone who's earlier in their career and haven't, really gotten their stride yet. And I always tell people that the most talented people are often the most challenging to manage, because presumably, we hope, you hired that person to do things well that you don't do well. Right? Your company is growing. You can bring someone in to do something that you either don't like to do or don't do well. And so they might be suggesting change or process improvement. And you're like, well, but yeah, we've always done it this way. And they're saying, well, I think this way would be better. And it's like that hard moment where you're like, well, yes, I hired you because you're better at that than I am.
If I'm not going to let you do it, then what are we doing? Right?
Yeah.
And that's where you come in. Because, to whether you're building or you're transforming the culture of an organization into a high performance one, right? It really, in my opinion, especially as a leader, because this is where ethnography comes in, that you're so immersed in that world, right? That you sometimes lose perspective. So you get somebody coming in at a subordinate level, right? You're wanting to build this, you've heard the buzzwords, this is what you want to do. You want people that are with their, with their hand on the latest and greatest technology or processes or, mindset. But if you yourself have not done the work as to what will that mean for my business, what does that mean for me as a leader,
Mm-hmm.
Because, we all have egos, and I personally believe that ego is a good thing. But it's in understanding what our role is. If you are a founder that started
Mm-hmm.
from scratch and you've taken your business to a certain point where you're now hiring a team of MBAs, right?
Right. Yes.
How do you manage, like you said, how do you lead not only the people, but the organization, this high performance, what does it mean,
Yeah.
right?
I
Working
think that,
with someone like you, I think, is so important because it gives the ability to bounce the ideas and the concepts and what does it mean before you embark on investing time and money onto building this high performance team.
right. I think you're dead on here, Caroline. I think you have a lot of insight here. It is helpful, when you are the founder, co-founder, maybe, um, and and you've got a team beneath you. You don't have a peer that you can bounce ideas off of that has been in the place that you're at now and been there, done that kind of thing. And sometimes you just need a confidential person that's not going to judge you or not going to say, oh, well, you did this thing last week and I didn't like it, right? Which sometimes team members might do. You need to have a person that you can talk to and bounce ideas off of so that they can use their experience and background to say, yeah, I think you're on the right path. Here are a couple of things that can help get you there more quickly. Or here is how I think you should handle that employee situation to make it go more smoothly, right? And I think we all need that kind of person, which is why Powerful Women Today is such a wonderful program, because it provides mentor experts to people who are in that development phase, developing their leadership skills. And I think one of the things that people need to just generally be aware of is that leadership, just like everything, has evolved and changed over time. So what was seen as a strong leader, I don't know, maybe in the 1960s or 1970s,
Yeah.
doesn't really go today,
Even
right?
pre-pandemic, I don't think we need to go that far.
Right. That's probably true.
Because pre-pandemic, I think that was such a recalibration and a course correction, right?
Yes.
That
Yes.
is really helped us, for those of us willing to do the work, to really reflect and innovate and update the way our operating procedure. But I want to go back a little bit on something you said, because when we're talking about leading and about having that confident, that advisory, right? What I often find, and myself as a, as an entrepreneur and leader and thought leader in corporate, you most of the time do not have the luxury of really speaking of vulnerabilities with your team.
True.
That's the reality,
Hmm.
right? Because you're the coach and you're going, literally going, yes, we can, we'll see it through. Where in the coach's mind is like, oh my God, we're doomed. Right? I don't know if we're going to be able to pull these off. Like, you don't have that benefit. But one of the areas that I find really helpful in working with an external advisor like yourself, a coach, a guide, a mentor, or even within peer mentorship, it's like going to the doctor and being actually able to tell what's wrong so that they can help you. If you go to the doctor and you don't disclose what the real symptoms are or what the issues are, chances are it's not going to help. Whether in the doctor being, whether it's a therapist or a physician, you need to be able to authentically, genuinely, and truthfully say what the challenge is.
That's so true because,
Right?
you know, oftentimes people get hung up on the symptoms of the problem, and they're going to solve the symptom, right? But then the root cause of the problem never goes away. And there's sort of a joke in the fractional COO community that we all get hired to work on processes and procedures. That's the most common reason someone gives for hiring a fractional COO, is they want to improve their processes and procedures. And then we come and we start working with the client and it's all people problems. It's not processes and procedures,
Right.
it's people problems. And so that's
Mhm.
a perfect example of what you're saying, that, they can solve those problems faster working with someone who's seen that 100 times before and knows that you really don't have a process problem,
Mm,
have a
right.
leadership or a people problem.
Would you say that's one of the biggest misconceptions?
Yes. Yes,
Mm.
absolutely. In operating a business, that is the biggest misconception. And people say, well, it must be different people problems for different businesses. No, it's not. It's the same problems over and over again, because
Mhm.
businesses run on people. Yes, there's technology. Yes, there's products. Yes, there's machines and artificial intelligence. But
Humans are not going anywhere fast.
not right.
Not
But it's
100%.
it's the people.
Mhm.
If you don't have, if you have great processes and procedures, but you don't have good people, then those processes and procedures are not going to save you,
Yeah.
because they're not going to follow them, they're going to ignore them, they're not going to keep them up to date. And so I think people managing people is sometimes hard. Sometimes you have to have hard conversations with people. Sometimes it's messy. Sometimes you're not sure what to do. And that's why working with someone like a fractional COO or a mentor coach is so helpful, because I have a business owner who who I've been coaching through a variety of personnel issues that she's
Mhm.
had. And really, she just needs to know how to say it in a way, how to give the employee the feedback and the coaching and the direction. And once she's got it, she can run with it, right? But it's when you're sitting in the dark all by yourself and just
You're just
trying to rely on the
trying
voices in your head to figure out the problem, it's like you're spinning your wheels.
Yeah. In your opinion, I love where you're going with this because I don't think we speak about it often enough. What is the element that gets most underestimated?
Oh, proactive communication, without hands down, hands down. Um, People have a tendency, especially entrepreneurs, because we're trying to do, 100 things at 100 miles an hour, right? And so things are going very quickly, and we don't we don't think we need to tell anybody something until we get to the point where we need them to be involved,
You don't
right?
need to know. You're on a need to know basis.
Right. And some things do need to be on a need to know basis, but by proactively communicating what's going on in the business and what the overall picture is and what projects are coming up, you can engage in dialogue and get feedback from your team that helps shape the project before it actually happens,
Mhm.
right? And it also makes them feel important and valued, and they're ready when the project comes. If you just keep going down your path and don't proactively communicate, and all of a sudden they've got a project, they have no frame for that, right? There's no framework for them. They don't understand the priority. What are the nuances? There's always nuances.
Yeah.
And I find that uh, proactive communication, even though you feel like you're taking extra time to communicate, which is just a few minutes, really. I mean, yeah, it makes things run more smoothly, and you're able to transition from project to project to project more quickly.
Yeah, I want to touch on something that I experienced firsthand. Um, that you sometimes, well, more often than not, you don't know what you don't know, right? And
Yes.
when I left corporate, within all my years in leadership within the C-suite, I always had the finance and human resources portfolio, right? So I was always leading people with the same technical ability or similar, and to a large degree, same, wiring, same kind of code, DNA code. And when I left and came on to entrepreneurship and, founding and leading Powerful Women Today, the challenge became in leading diverse teams,
Hmm.
right? Because what you were just saying is that when you're leading a more homogenous team, you don't always have to spell every step of the way because we all know what it means. We all know the
Right.
lingo. We all know the formula. We all know the language, right? So the leadership was different than leading, right hemisphere, then left hemisphere at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And feel everyone psychologically safe and feel everyone appreciated and making sure everyone is understanding what the meaning of the message is, not just the words, right?
Right.
But
Yeah.
actual what those words, how those words are meant to, what the message is. So what would you say is the biggest takeaway as we come to the top of our segment, the biggest takeaway for creating psychological safety for diverse teams when it comes to failure and success?
I think the most important thing for success is always try to look at it from the team's perspective, the team as a whole, as well as individual team members, because individual team members will have different varying levels of need for information, how detailed it is, how specific it is, right? And then you also need to, you're trying to keep the team to act as a cohesive unit, right?
Mhm.
So it's very tempting to say, I'm the boss and this is the way I want it done. I own the company and this is how we've always done it.
My house, my rules.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And great, good for you. But once you have a team, that no longer works. It's great when it's just you and your dog. And so I think, and I'm not saying you pander to your team members and you do everything you do everything they want to do. What I'm saying is, whatever message you're delivering or whatever thing you're working on, before you deliver that message or talk to them about it, think about what their perspective on this is going to be and how they react, and then try to adjust your communications approach so that you are sort of heading things off at the pass, proactively addressing the issues that would normally make them feel unsafe or insecure. Like right now, everyone's worried about AI and, everyone's going to lose their jobs. And I think that there are some wonderful conversations and some technology leaders have had as to why that is not the case, right? So they're clearly looking at it from their employees' perspective, even though they're the ones developing the AI.
Yeah, it's yes, and you and I are going to come back in touch on that topic,
Right.
and because to the point that you were saying is really about strategic change.
Mm-hmm.
Working with someone like you gives that ability to polish that message and the implementation of the communication and change so that it is embraced, and B, that it enhances the team instead of, making us all into a bag of neurosis, which oftentimes when it's either over disclosure or under disclosure, right? It's finding
Yes.
the sweet spot. So Valerie, always a pleasure. Time just flies by, but I know you have a recurring column on our Powerful Women Today magazine.
Yes.
And there's more of that, and you have a chapter in our upcoming book anthology. So absolutely tons of goodness and insights and information from Valerie, and we'll put your contact information on the comment below. So thank you, everyone, and have a wonderful day. Thank you, Valerie.
Thank you.
Empowering women on a global scale. This has been Powerful Women Today with Carolina Billings. To learn more about how you can join and transform your life and the lives of women everywhere with professional speaking, publishing, podcasting, and web TV, visit powerfulwomentoday.com. Remember to subscribe to this podcast on iTunes, YouTube, or wherever you like to listen and watch your podcasts.